expect. I'm glad to have you all with me today. My name is Michelle Long. I am a CPA and the owner of Long for Success. I'm the author of several different books. They're all available on Amazon if you want to check them out, including the QuickBooks Online Practice Set to give you more practice with QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop, either one. I'm co-host of the Ultimate Accounting Decon, an award-winning virtual conference for accounting and bookkeeping professionals. Love to have you join me for that. My LinkedIn group now has over 62,000 members, so if you're interested in joining the LinkedIn group, it's a great resource. And I'm also thrilled to say, you know, I've been a speaker for Intuit since 2007, but now I'm an international speaker. Not only have I had the privilege of going across the U.S. and cities across Canada, but I've also been able to go over to Australia and London, and I've really enjoyed that. So I'm glad you guys are joining me today for this webinar. I'd like to know a little bit about you all, too, who we have on the webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and launch another poll question. Which describes you? Are you an accountant, a bookkeeper, a tax professional? Are you a member of the Pro Advisor program? And if you are you certified? And you can answer more than one on these. You might be an accountant and a tax professional. So go ahead and answer. Let me know a little bit about you. Let me know what your titles are, what you do, and that would be great. And I'll share those results with you in just a minute. We do have Mohammed joining us from Karachi, Pakistan. Good to have you, Mohammed. I've seen you on some other webinars, so glad you're here. Very good. Charlene says she's used the QBO sample book, and it's great. I'm glad to hear that, Charlene. Very good. That's cool. Yeah, it does give you lots of extra practice. Okay, so attendees are about done. We've got about 80% of you who have answered that poll question. So I'm going to go ahead and close it so we can get started, and I'll share the results with you. You can see we've got about roughly 60% accountants and bookkeepers. We've got about a third tax professionals. I think everybody else doing taxes has probably collapsed today and sleeping, right? Since yesterday was the tax deadline. Only about 48% are members of the Pro Advisor program and 34% certified. All right, very good. Okay, well, for those of you that need CPE credits, if you're a CPA or a certified bookkeeper and you need continuing education credit, you're going to need to stay on today for the entire webinar. I will give a keyword sometime during the webinar, and you need to write that down so that you remember what that keyword is. At the end of the webinar, you're going to be prompted to enter that keyword, and then you'll get your certificate emailed to you, but it'll take a couple of weeks, so you might just remember that it'll be weeks before that certificate is emailed to you. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the agenda and what we're going to cover in this webinar. We're going to talk about understanding how to convert from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. We'll talk about the limitations of converting. What are some of those limitations? We'll also talk about understanding the alternatives to converting and identify things to do after converting. Because converting is easy, but there's a lot of other things to take into consideration. Now, the course materials are available to you at intuitacademy.com/materials. However, they're not uploaded yet for this live webinar, so they've been pasting a link in the chat window there in the question box. There's a link where you can go get these PowerPoints and download those today. Also, there's a lot of other resources here available for you. Don't try to write all these down by any means, but that's why you're going to want to get the PDF. So you have all of these links available to you. These give you a lot more details on the conversion and things like that, things that you need to know, things that I'm going to be talking about today. So I wanted to make sure that I shared these detailed links with you so you've got access to that. Also, I want to make sure that everybody knows we're talking about the new QuickBooks Online. If you haven't seen the new QBO yet, it's the one with the navigation bar in blue on the left side. This is what it looks like. The new QBO is awesome. The more I work with it, the more I really, really like it. But this is what we're talking about today, is the new QBO. And if you need to learn some more about that, or if you have other questions about some other things, I wanted to make you aware of some of these other resources, because today we're talking about the one in red here, converting to QBO. Last week we talked about which QBO might be right for my client. So there's a recording to that you can go watch. Then also we're going to cover next week common mistakes in QBO. So you can register for that. Let me go on into Intuit Academy and show you. When you go to intuitacademy.com, you have the live webinar tab right here. And that's where you can register for the webinar next week or other webinars that are upcoming. But then also you have the on-demand training. That tab takes you to these recordings. And there's a lot of materials out there. If you need an intro to QBO, if you need to know what is the cloud, if you want to watch the value pricing webinar that we did, there's all these training resources that are out here for you at intuitacademy.com. So go check them out. And you've got live, on-demand, and even local training. So go check some of those out. That's a great resource for you because we're not covering all that stuff today. Let me get back into my PowerPoint here. Also then, there's some other YouTube videos. I've got some out there to help you learn about the basics of the new QuickBooks Online if you haven't learned that yet, as well as some navigating tips and tricks and how to create the one-click icon bar. Some of you are going to see that today when I'm going into QBO and you're going to ask how I did that. That's where you're going to be able to find how I did that because I'm not taking this to cover that today in this webinar. Okay, so there's some other resources that are available out there for you. So let's get in and start talking about converting. That's what we're here for today. We're talking about converting from the desktop to QuickBooks Online. And you know what? It's easy. It is really easy to convert. First step is make sure that they've updated QuickBooks. You've got to make sure that they've updated QuickBooks to the latest version. And we're talking right now about 2008 and newer, and there's some links and details on the older versions and how to do that. But first we're going to talk about the basics here, how to convert from 2008 and newer. You're going to update QuickBooks so that you've got the conversion link in there. So update, restart QuickBooks, and then you go under Company, export the company file to QuickBooks Online. And then it's going to walk you through how to do that. And we'll talk about a few tips and things here in just a minute. But it's going to say, is it right for you? It's going to point out, some different features that are available in QBO or available in the desktop that are not available in QBO. And I put in the notes for you. Some of these things are actually inaccurate as you go through there. This hasn't been updated yet because, for example, you can have multiple sales tax rates now. You can set up sales tax rates for different cities, so that's available now. You can do recurring transactions instead of memorized transactions. You may be able to turn on inventory. You can do some customization to your template. So some of this stuff is a little bit dated. So just keep that in mind as you're looking through there. But then when you go to convert, it's going to ask which company do you want to put this into. And one of the tips that I have for you is that you should go into QBO A or QBO. I suggest you set up the new company file first, because that way you can control the name of the company. For example, if I just go into, let me just go ahead and get into QuickBooks here. I'm in the desktop version of QuickBooks now. If I just go under Company, export this to QBO, it's going to use whatever company name I have in that QuickBooks file, and you may or may not want that. Once you do that, you can't change the name. So you want to make sure you get the name what you want it. So that's why you may want to go ahead and set up the QBO subscription first to put the name the way that you want it. Then you can come in here, and converting is easy. So I just clicked on Company, Export to QBO, and then we clicked on Continue. And here's where it's going to give you that little screen telling you some of this stuff that we just talked about. Click Continue again. You're going to either sign in, and I'm going to use the one that I use for my sample account here. Whoops. And you want to make sure that if you don't have an Intuit ID, you click right up here, and you're going to go ahead and create a new Intuit ID. Usually, though, you already have that, especially if you already set up the subscription in QBO. This is where I already set it up so I could choose the name that I want, because once you do this, you can't do it again. So if you want to change the name or something, make sure you set it up in QBO first. The other thing that I want to make sure I point out to you is if you've signed up for QBOA, which you should, all of us as accountants and bookkeepers should be logging in through QBOA. As part of QBOA, you get My Company. You can use that to convert and upload your own company data there. So you can put your own company in there under My Company. Here's where if I didn't set up the subscription in QBO yet, this is where I can go ahead and say create a new company. It will assign it whatever the name is, the company name that's in your QuickBooks desktop file. That's what it's going to give it, and that's what it'll show up on your list and in QBO. And then you would just click Continue, and it says that it's going to go ahead and do that, and it takes a few minutes. So converting is really easy, and I did that just a little bit ago with this Rock Castle sample company file. So you see I have Rock Castle. I wanted to change the name, so I set it up as Rock Castle April 2014. This is what I wanted to see instead of just Rock Castle Construction. So I've already opened this, and it converted my data for me just a little bit ago. It only takes a few minutes to convert that. You'll see names that you're familiar with. If you've used the sample company file Rock Castle, you'll recognize Christie Abercrombie, Robert Allen, Babcock. So it converted that data. It just takes a few seconds. So converting, it's really easy, right? However, and this is where we really got to get in and talk about this, because it's easy to convert, but there's a lot of other things that go into consideration here. There are limitations on converting. The QuickBooks desktop file size needs to be small, somewhat small. I guess it's not really that small, but it needs to be less than 350,000 targets. It used to be limited to less than 250. So let me show you how you can determine that. When you're in QuickBooks Desktop, if you hit the F2 key, it will open up the product information window. F2 or Control 1, either one of those will pull that up. So in here you'll see here's the file size, and they used to say 250 megabytes, but now they say total targets. See this total targets and total links in here? It's the total targets. And the reason for that is because you have this file in here, and you may have an invoice that has 1 line. You may have an invoice that has 50 lines. So the transactions themselves may be more complex. Some might be really easy 1-line transactions. Others might be more complex. So now they're going based on the total target size. So there is a file size limitation. Also, I want to point out, if you're using QuickBooks for Mac, or if you're using QuickBooks Enterprise, or if you're using an older version, there's some special procedures for converting those. And I shared those links with you. For example, here's the information on importing to the new QBO. All of these links are in this PowerPoint that you're going to get to download. So it talks about how to convert from the newer versions. We just went over that one. If you've got the older versions, 2007 or older, or QuickBooks Enterprise, there's a few different steps that you have to go through, and this link gives you that information. Same thing if you're using QuickBooks for Mac. There's some special procedures there. In QuickBooks for Mac 2014, you can do the conversion like I just showed you. Just go to convert that company, and it's quick and easy. But in the older versions of Mac, you don't have that available. So I shared that link with you as well. Let's see, this is Enterprise. The Mac version, though, you can actually download a trial version of QuickBooks for Mac 2014 to convert that. So I shared those links with you. Again, those were back up on the resources page here. Up here, you'll see here's the convert for Mac. So I've shared those links with you if you need that on how to convert those, okay? So don't worry about the details on that. If you've got Mac or if you've got older years, I shared the details right there with you. You still can convert that. Another option would be update those files to the newer versions, and then you can go through the conversion like we just showed you. So the basic conversion is easy. It was, what, 3 clicks? Less than like maybe 3 minutes. It was very fast to actually do the conversion. But you also need to be aware you can only convert and import desktop data within the first 60 days. That's the only time frame that you have to do that. And so we have some people who they sign up for QBOA, and then they don't do anything with my company, and then it might be 6 months later, and they say, well, now I'm ready to convert my company, and it's too late. They can't do that. What's my options? Well, your options are to start a new subscription, because you can only do it within the first 60 days. So keep that in mind now. Also then, the other thing is if you have a company file that has multiple currency turned on, if you have multiple currencies turned on in the desktop version, you can't convert that file to QuickBooks Online. Again, if multiple currency is already turned on in the desktop version, that file will not convert to QBO. And that's true for the U.S. as well as the global version. Now, in the U.S., our QBO, QuickBooks Online, we don't have multiple currency. But even in the global versions like Canada, UK, Australia, the other countries, They have multiple currencies for QBO, but they still can't convert that QuickBooks file if the multiple currencies turned on. So you might need to check if you are from one of the other countries, because I know we have several people on here from Canada, and we have some other global people. In Canada in particular, they have a company and they have a conversion service. So contact QuickBooks, join the Cloud Pro Advisor program, whether you're in the U.S. or Canada or wherever. Make sure you join the Cloud Pro Advisor program. It is free, and you'll want to reach out to Intuit and talk to them about doing the conversions for you because they may be able to help with that. Another thing that we need to talk about is inventory. I do not recommend converting a file that has inventory. If you have a desktop file with inventory, it's an average cost. If you have QBO, it does inventory on a FIFO basis, and the conversion doesn't work quite the way you would expect it, and you're going to do a lot of cleanup work. So that's something to consider as well. So, you know, we went through that conversion in 5 minutes. Bam, our webinar is over. We're done. It's easy to convert, but there's a lot that goes into this before you actually just jump in and start converting that file. So these are some things to think about right off the bat. Then we've got a lot more to think about. First of all, let me go ahead and give you that keyword here. The keyword is Monday. Monday is the keyword. And somebody says, please repeat the 60-day thing. Okay, I'll repeat that. When you sign up for a QBO subscription, that starts your 60-day period. During that 60-day period, you can convert and upload the data from the QuickBooks desktop. After 60 days, you can't do that anymore. So you can upload your data during the first 60 days. So that's something to think about, okay? How do you bring current clients into a new subscription? Christina, are you talking about current clients on the desktop or current clients in QBO? Because if the clients are in the desktop, that's what we're talking about today, is how to convert our clients that are using the desktop version of QuickBooks. How do we convert them into QBO? That's what we're talking about here. If my QBOA account has been active for more than 60 days, can I still convert the files? Unfortunately, Elizabeth, that my company, when you sign up for QBOA, which as accounting professionals, we should join the Cloud Pro Advisor program. That's free. And we also then get a free subscription to QBOA, QuickBooks Online Accountant. In that, we get my company. Let me just go ahead and show you my company in QBOA. Let me get into QBOA here. QBOA, QuickBooks Online Accountants, we get my company. See up here where it says my company? During the first 60 days, you can convert and upload your own data into this file. This is your subscription that you can use. If you're outside of that 60 days, what you may need to do is sign up for another QBOA account. That's what I have right now. I have 2 QBOA accounts. I have one for my Gmail that I use for samples. So for example, all of these are sample companies. These aren't my real clients. And then I have my Long for Success email that I use for my own business and my clients. So when I'm doing training and webinars like this, you guys don't see all my client lists. So I have 2. So if you missed out on the first 60 days to convert your company, you may need another subscription because at this time you cannot do that. Okay? Okay, so Deborah's saying, if I do have to start a new QBOA subscription, how do I convert those clients to a new one? So let's say I need a new QBOA subscription, and all of these clients I want now to show up in my new QBOA. What you would have to do is log into each and every one of these clients and invite yourself as the accountant user under your new email account, because that's how it links it between the client file and your QBOA client list. It's based on the email. So you'd need to go into each client in here, open it up, invite yourself as the accountant's user, and that will move it to the new one. Okay? So does that help? Okay. What is the parent account in QBOA? I'm not sure what you mean by parent account. I don't see parent. Okay. I'll get back to some more questions. Those of you that need continuing education, write down the keyword, Monday. Monday is the keyword, even though today's Wednesday. The keyword is Monday. Most people don't like Mondays. They get back to work and they're dreary and draggy and they need some coffee on Monday. Write down the keyword, Monday. Okay, if you're multitasking, if you're doing email or Facebooking, you better write down Monday because I can't repeat this later. So please, if you're not paying attention, CPE keyword Monday. Okay, so everybody write down Monday. All right, I hope you get that. Monday, Monday, Monday. All right, let's get back in here and talk about some more of these details. Okay, so what happens, and this is what I see all the time, is I showed you how easy it is to convert. People go in and they click convert my company from the desktop, convert it to QBO. I have it in QBO and everything's wonderful, right? Oops. Then we get in there and we realize, uh-oh, we have some problems. Because people get excited about how easy it is to convert. They convert all that data, but now any inactive customers, vendors, accounts, or employees, they're now active. So think about this. You have clients that have been using the desktop version for 5, 10 years, maybe 15 years. They've got a lot of old things on their list. They clean up the list and they make them inactive. Well, now when you convert to QBO, they're all active again. So you could have hundreds that you have to go in and delete or make them inactive in QuickBooks Online. That's just time consuming, right? It's a waste of time to do that. So you need to be aware of that. The list, any inactive list items, customers, vendors, accounts, employees, they're going to be active again. The other thing that you need to be aware of is if they have names that are on the other names list, and we're talking about some problems here, and we'll talk about some solutions and how to avoid some of these things in just a minute. If they have names on the other names list, which really they shouldn't, I recommend people do not use the other names list. I'm not sure why it's even there, but if there's names there, they will be put on the vendors list in QBO. But if you go look in the checks that you might have to that person that was on the other names list, the payee field is going to be blank. So that's something that you need to be aware of. If they're using the custom fields in the desktop version, you know how you can set up custom fields for customers, for vendors, for your employees? Those fields don't get converted to QuickBooks Online. So if they have custom fields set up, they're not going to have that available in QBO. There's no customer types. If they've categorized their customers by type, like in Rockcastle, they had commercial and residential. You don't have those customer types. You don't have the sales rep field. So these are some things that aren't going to convert for you. So that's something to think about. Sandra's saying, can I convert the sample companies to play around with without being charged? Sandra, I think you should convert a real company file. I don't think it will allow you to export the sample company file. I know a little trick to turn that into a real company file. But what you can do is sign up for a free subscription to QBO, and you can upload or convert your own company file. So you can go in there and play with that, and you would have a 30-day trial period that you could do that for testing purposes. Okay, Michelle? So these are some things. Yeah, Woody.
Can I chime in? You can convert the sample company file. Just keep in mind that the dates, once again, in QBO will be out in the future.
So it will let you do the sample company without making it a real one?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That's a good tip there. And Woody Adams is awesome. He's an Intuit employee that is just great. He's got lots of videos and things like that. So if you go into the sample company files, and let me just show you that because some people don't know where to find those sample company files. If you go to File, Close Company, you'll see in the bottom right corner of the No Company Open With list, you'll see Open a Sample Company File. And that's where you can access Rockcastle, the product-based business, or some of these other ones. And then, so what you'd want to do is have a trial subscription in QBO. So here's your Open a Sample Company file. And with QuickBooks Accountant Edition, we have lots of different ones here. The sample product-based business, that one is Rockcastle. That's the one that I've been working with in here today. And you could go in, and that would allow you to test this conversion and test some of that data and things like that to see how it works. So that's a good point, Woody. Yes, you key transfer that. Okay, let's talk some more about some of these limitations, some problems, and some alternatives and what we might want to do about that. Because there's a lot of data that doesn't get converted. When you convert from the desktop, the payroll data doesn't come over as paychecks. Now, it has to keep your balances right and everything, so the payroll's converted, the payroll and the payroll tax payments and stuff, they're regular checks. So they will get converted as a regular check, not as a paycheck. So that's something to keep in mind. And you're going to need to go in and set up payroll in the QBO. You'll need to put in the year-to-date information, the payroll items, and some things like that. So payroll comes over as checks to keep your balances correct, but the payroll details don't come over. Your sales tax items and agencies don't come over. You're going to need to set those up. That doesn't come over either. And actually, let me just go in and show you this great resource that we have available, and then I'll get back into that. And again, I've shared these links with you. Some of these import limitations here, this is where it will show you all the details. The green check marks, date is converted. The blue, most of it's converted. This one says it may not be, and then the X is it definitely does not exist. This is an awesome resource for you to get familiar with what's going to come over, what's not going to come over. It's a great chart here. So you can see here's customers, vendors, employees, banking, your list. You'll see all this detail. Down here you've got the company reports, billing information, printing information. And then as you go down, look at all this detail here. You can go down and see, the audit trail. The audit trail from the desktop does not come over. You've got a whole new activity log or audit log in QBO, but that doesn't come over with you. Bills, budgets, classes, closing dates, charges. Here's where we were talking about the customers, and this is where we have what's converted, what's not converted. The inactive status is the big one that we were just talking about. All of your lists are now going to be active again. If you've got a lot of inactive customers, inactive vendors or suppliers, you're going to have them active again in QBO, and some people have hundreds of them. So you'd have to go make them inactive again or delete them in QBO. So it's giving you all of these details, and in particular in inventory. Inventory is something that we were getting ready to talk about. Inventory does convert, but it doesn't convert quite like we would expect it. So for example, it will create these sub-items, if you will, for inventory asset and cost of goods sold. It's really kind of a weird conversion, and you have to go in and do a lot of cleanup work. Remember, the desktop version of inventory is average cost, and QBO is a FIFO basis. So inventory is quite cumbersome, and I don't recommend converting a company file that has inventory. But I shared this link for you to this QBO answer here with all of these details. So keep in mind, I'm just giving you some high-level information here on what's not important. I shared that link with you. I want you to go in there and you can review all of the details there. But like I was just mentioning, the inventory and inventory groups, it doesn't convert quite right. I just recommend if a client has inventory in the company file, unless it's very basic inventory with just a few items, I don't recommend converting that company file. We're going to talk about what the options are when you can't convert in just a moment here. Okay, so we'll talk about that in just a minute. But that's something to keep in mind. Memorized transactions, or if you've got memorized reports, those things aren't going to convert to QBO. You'll need to go in. You have recurring transactions that you can set up in QBO, and you can customize reports in QBO, but that stuff's not going to convert and not come over from the desktop version. You'll need to do that in QBO once you have it set up. The price levels, you don't have that feature in QBO, so you don't have multiple price levels available. You would need to set up multiple items or products and services in QBO. The budgets, you can do budgets in QBO Plus, but the budgets don't get converted from the desktop version into QBO, so those don't get converted. The sales form templates, if you've customized templates in the desktop version, that's not going to transfer over to QBO. It's not going to be converted. In QBO, you can do some customization of your invoices and your sales receipts and your estimates, but the customization isn't as robust, and you can't have multiple templates. So that's something to be aware of. You do have estimates available in QBO, but the estimates from the desktop don't get converted to QBO. And again, I'm trying to point out things that you as accounting professionals need to be aware of, because you saw how easy it is to do the conversion. But then this is where the devil's in the details. We need to be aware of some of these things so that when you do that conversion, you're prepared for some of these things and you're not surprised by it. Again, go to that URL there to get the full detail list I'm not going to sit here and go over every single thing on there. I tried to hit some of the highlight and the most frequently encountered situations. So what do we do when we have a company file that's too big, a company file that has multiple currency turned on? What do we do when we have a company file that has data integrity issues? What are some things that we can do prior to converting the file? Well, one of the first things you'll want to do is, especially when we have clients that have been using QuickBooks Desktop for a long time, they may have some data integrity issues. If the company file has data integrity problems, when you try to convert it, you might get a 500 error. You might get this little message that says it won't convert. If you see like the error code 500, you could have some data integrity problems. And a lot of people go in and they just want to rebuild that company file. But unfortunately, the rebuild doesn't fix everything on the first pass. A lot of times you have to rebuild that data file 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So what I suggest you do instead is create a portable company file and then restore the portable company file. What that does is it re-indexes the data, and when it re-indexes that data, it fixes all the little links in the underlying database, and a lot of times it will fix things on the first pass. So you don't have to do multiple rebuilds. Create a portable company file, restore the portable company file, and then try to convert that file, because that usually will fix some data integrity issues. If you still have some data integrity issues, you may need to get a little more complex where you have to go in and look at the QB win INI log file and see what problem transactions are, delete and re-enter those. If you get more complex, that's a good point of where you want to be a member of the Pro Advisor program. And again, it's free to join the Cloud Pro Advisor program. Go in there, join the Cloud Pro Advisor program, get certified, and then you have free support. So if you've got a situation where you still can't fix the data integrity program or data integrity issues, call the Pro Advisor support number. That's what you want to join the program and get certified, so you've got support and they can help you with some of that stuff. Now, we talked about the file size limitations, and so we may want to condense data for a couple of different reasons. File size limitations. The other thing is when we condense the data, that's going to help us to clean up those lists. Remember we talked about how all the inactive names are going to come through? So let's go in and let's talk about this a little bit more. When we go under File, Utilities, and I will point out this is not available in Canada in the global editions. I am sorry. We'll talk about some alternatives for setting up a new file in just a minute. But under File, Utilities, Convert, and I don't recommend this with 2011 and older because they fixed it and changed it in 2012 or newer. I'm sorry, we're not converting, we're condensing. File, Utilities, Condense. You should do this in 2012 or newer. When I go into condense the data, this is going to make my file size smaller because I can condense it. You can pick which date. I don't recommend uploading 10 years worth of history to QBO. Why on earth do you need that? I can keep my desktop file and I can restore or refer back to that history when I need to. I don't need all that garbage up in the cloud. I don't need to convert all of that to QBO. I recommend you convert and just keep like the last year or so. So here we are, April 2014. Perhaps I want to keep 2013 and 2014. So I would condense the data before a specific date. Remove transactions before January 1st, 2013. That will leave 2013 and 2014 in the file for me to convert. Go ahead and click Next. Oh, remember I have this Rock Castle file is in the future, so I need to change it to like 2017. And remember, we still will have a desktop file. Keep a backup of that you can refer to when you need to. If you get audited or you need to see the historical information, that will still be there in the desktop file. And then I recommend, because we're converting, all we need is a summary journal entry. But you may want to do a summary journal entry for each month so that you can have some comparison purposes. That's going to make it a bigger file. So if file size limitation is an important issue, then you may want to go with the one summary. But then this is where, because now we're summarizing our data, we now can go through and it can remove some of these things as well as clean up my list. See this one right here? unused list entries. Now that I've condensed the data and there's no transactions for customers and vendors or suppliers that are inactive, it will remove those names. I'm not converting my old inactive customers and vendors to the cloud, to QBO. I'm deleting them here before I convert this file to QBO. So again, once we condense the data, so if I condense the data for 2012 and older, now there's no activity on those customers or those vendors or suppliers. So now this last step in this condense feature, it says delete these old vendors and suppliers and things like that. And so you're not uploading all those old inactive things. Because remember, when you convert, they're all active again. So let's clean it up and get rid of this stuff before we do the conversion. Does that make lots of sense? Okay, so that's something that you're going to want to do. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and do this here, but that's how you go through and you condense that data. Do this stuff before. So I know everybody gets excited about converting to the cloud, and then you convert the data, and then you realize, oh my goodness, we have all these old inactive customers, we got old vendors, we've got old history, we need to do some work before converting. And the best thing that you can do is condense the data and only convert the last year or so. And we'll talk in just a minute about what to do when you may want to start a new file. This is where we talked about the first 60 days. So let's say that you got all excited. And Kathy, I love seeing that. Kathy's typed in here her wish list. She has a session with Woody, me, and Stacy. So Kathy, I'm going to pick on you for just a minute. Let's say Kathy got all excited. She converted a desktop file to QuickBooks Online, and then she says, whoops, I forgot. Michelle told me all these old inactive things were coming through. I should have cleaned it up before I did the conversion. Can I do it over? Can I try again? And the answer is yes. In the first 60 days, you can have a do-over. Now, when you do the do-over, it will replace anything you have in QBO. So if you've done any work in QBO, if you've made changes, whatever you've done, it's going to wipe it all out and redo it. But this is a great option when you convert the data and then you realize you've got some of those whoopsies, like all the old customers, the inventory didn't come across, whatever the situation is. You can purge the data. Okay, so you have two options. You can just re-import the data or reconvert. If you convert it again, it will give you that warning. Like when I went through that conversion process and I chose Rockcastle, it says, warning, you've already got some stuff out there. It's going to replace everything that's in that company file. The other option, if you're not going to be able to convert, like let's say you realized you shouldn't convert inventory, you want to start over, you can purge the data. So you have two options. Re-import or reconvert the desktop into the company subscription in QBO, or purge the QBO data, and we're going to talk about starting a fresh company and importing lists and things like that in just a second. To purge the data, again, you can only do this in the first 60 days. You go into the company homepage and you change that URL to purge company. So let me go in and show you what I'm talking about there. In that company, when I'm on the home page, see this where it says home page? I just would come up here on the top and type in purge company. And when I do that, I say purge company, it's going to ask if you're really sure that you want to wipe out all that data. So purge company, and it will say, are you really sure? You can only do this in the first 60 days, and it's going to delete everything. So see, it says it'll delete all of these things. Once you do this, there's no undo. And then you'll be able to start all over from fresh, and it says you can only do this for 60 days. Now, I'm not actually going to purge that company because I don't want to do it. But I would actually have to type yes. Down here in the bottom lower right corner, you don't even just click OK. You actually have to type in yes and then click on OK. I'm just going to click cancel because I don't want to do that. I just wanted to make you aware that you can actually do a complete, total, start fresh, do-over type of deal. Okay, so again, that's in the first 60 days that you can do that. Now, let's say you want to fully start fresh. You realized you shouldn't import the inventory. Your company file has multi-currency, so you can't convert it. Your company file wasn't set up correctly. You guys know when you look, you'll see clients that have garbage in, garbage out. They set up their items wrong. There's all kinds of different situations where the desktop file is in bad shape. or we can't convert the desktop file for whatever reason. So we still keep that desktop file to refer to it as needed. That's your historical information. You keep that available in the event that you're audited. You need to look back at the history, whatever situation, you still have the data there. But we want to start a new company, a fresh company in QuickBooks Online. We don't have to totally start from scratch. We can export some lists and do some cleanup work. So we can export lists from the desktop version. Then we can take it and clean it up in Excel. Okay, so we can export our list, clean it up in Excel, and then import it into QBO. Okay, so in the desktop version, we can export our list, clean it up, and then import into Excel. Let's go in and talk about this a little bit. If you go under File, Utilities, Export. So in the desktop version, I said let's export my lists to an IIF file. All right, don't do them all together. Okay, don't do them all together. So I would do them one at a time. Like here's my customer list. I can export that. And let me see, it's going on my desktop. Let's do customers test. And I'll show you what this looks like because an IIF file can be opened in Excel. Whoops, and I thought I had Excel open, and I didn't. I apologize for that. Okay, so in Excel, I would go to File, Open, and I go look on my desktop, and I can't find it. I need to change this All Excel Files to All Files. Change that to All Files. And then you're going to come in here, and you're going to find that Customers Test IIF. And it gives me this, oh, what is this? Just click through these things. Just click Next, Next. Click Finished. There you have the data in there. First thing you're going to want to do is delete all of these kind of header rows in here. Come in here, delete these rows. Now I have my customer list. This is where I can go in here and I can find the column for inactive. So you're going to want to scroll over here and find where the inactive column is, sort it, clean it up. Let's see, where's hidden? It's this one over here, hidden or not hidden, yes or no. Hidden means it's inactive. So I would sort, and all the ones that have a yes, delete them. Clean this list up so that this A test here was inactive in the desktop version. I don't want to upload that to QBO. So in here, I'm going to manipulate my data. I'm going to go through, I'm going to sort by whether they're hidden or not, and all the ones that are hidden or inactive, delete them so that you don't upload those into QBO. So clean up your lists in Excel here. And then when you're in QBO, you click on here in the upper right corner, and you can click on Import Data. And this allows you to import those lists, your customers, your vendors or suppliers, your chart of accounts or products and services list. Your items list is called the products and services list. Now, special care needs to be taken when it comes to the chart of accounts because QBO has detail accounts, whereas QB Desktop doesn't. So one of the things that I suggest that you do, there's a sample company file. When you're in QBO A and you click on this help, the little question mark help in the very upper right corner, notice where it says the sample company, QBO sample company. Go into that sample company file, go into the reports, and we want to export the account listing to give us those detail accounts. So let me close this stuff out here. So under reports, we're going to go in and we're going to look for account listing. And you want to export this account listing because it has the detail type. See, in the desktop version, we just have a type. We don't have a detail type, but QBO requires a detail type. So in a company file that's already in QBO, if you don't have one, use the sample company file. If you already have a company, you could go in and export that one, but send it to Excel and then clean up your chart of accounts in Excel, adding in the detail type of account so that you can import that. Otherwise, you're going to have a few problems when you try to import the chart of accounts. Okay, so does that make sense? So let me go back in here and we'll review that. So again, you export the list from the desktop. In the account situation and chart of accounts, you're going to need to go create the account listing and send that to Excel. Clean these things up in Excel, and then you can import them into QBO. Let me go ahead and show you how that import works. Whoops, I want it to be a QBO. In QBO, let's see. I should be able to import into the sample company here. Let's go ahead and click on Import Data. And when I click on Customers, I then would go out and choose that Excel file. And up here's where you can get a sample file if you want to see what it's going to look like. But this is where I've cleaned up my customer file. And now I go in and I want to import the customers. I've got a customer file out here. You select that Excel file, and it's going to upload those customers for you. You can do this again on the customers, the vendors, your items or products and services list, and your chart of accounts. So we cleaned it up in Excel. We've got it all ready to go. Here it is, and I can import all of these quick and easy into QBO. Okay, so does that make sense? So when you've got a situation where you cannot convert the desktop, or you want to start fresh in QBO, or you've got lots of inactive list items, inactive customers, vendors, and suppliers, you can go through, clean those things up, and then import them to get you going into QBO. Does that make sense? Hopefully. All right, let's go ahead and see. What is a detail type? Okay, Woody's answered some of these already, so let me sort and see if there's any in particular that we need to cover, because we do have some time for questions. Okay, when you import, does it overwrite and update, or just a complete overwrite? So Glennie, there's two things going on here. Let me go back into QBO so I can show you this. When I'm importing a list like this, it will tell me if there's a duplicate out there, and it will ask, what do you want to do? There's duplicate. So when you're importing your list, it's going to ask you. If I go in to import the whole desktop data, it's going to do an overwrite. So if you want to convert the desktop data again, it's going to overwrite and replace what you have in QBO. If you're going through the import data option here, if there's duplicates, it will say, you already have this, what do you want to do? It will give you error messages when you're trying to import, and then you can decide what you want to do if that list item already exists. So I hope that helps. So and here we have import, can you replace with the Excel imports? Yeah, if you only need to do these lists. The only time that you want to import the lists here is when you've got a situation where the desktop version is not, you don't want to convert from the desktop to QBO. Either the file size is too big, you've got multiple currency turned on, you've got inventory, or you just have it not set up properly. The desktop version's a mess, and you just want to start with a fresh company in QuickBooks Online. So in this situation, we're importing these lists instead of converting. So this is instead of converting, we may want to start a new QBO subscription, but we don't want to start from scratch. So we can still import our customers, our vendors, and things like that, the products and services of items list. So you can import some of these things to give you a jump start. So this is a situation where you're going to start fresh. You're not actually converting. And we want to import our lists only. Then after I import my list, then I have to go in and do a journal entry to set up my opening balances. I would need to enter my opening open invoices, open AP bills, and set up the beginning balances and things like that. Okay, somebody's asking about the CPE keyword, and I have already done that. Where can we find the full generic chart of accounts to import? Lori, what I would suggest is go in, there's a different chart account for different types of companies. So, you know, there's the product-based business, the service-based business. You've got various sample company accounts there. So kind of take the one that you think might work depending on type of industry you're setting up. Okay. When you condense data and tell it to remove the inactive customers, does it also remove any transaction records that may still be in the data file? So good question. When you do the condensed data, you can't just get rid of your history, right? That's part of your balances, right? It affects your beginning balances, so you can't just get rid of the data. So when you do condensed data, what it does is it takes all of the individual transactions and it makes summary journal entries, either summary by month or summary by year, depending on what you choose. So when you summarize that data, you're keeping the balances in there, but it gets rid of those individual transactions. Once you get rid of those individual transactions, then your customers don't have any history associated with their name. That's how it then can delete those customers or vendors or those inactive names. So it's condensing those transactions into summary journal entries. And you can read more about that in QuickBooks Help. You can read more about that in there. So let's now talk about a few things to do after converting, and then I'll get into some more questions that you have. So you've done this conversion. The first thing you're going to want to do is go in and verify your reports. Okay, so go in and take a look at the profit and loss and the balance sheet. And a couple of things, make sure that in both the desktop and QBO that you set the date to all, their date range to all dates and an accrual basis. And the reason for that is sometimes there's typos and people get a date, you know, way out 2017 or 2025, or, you know, there's some crazy dates in there. So make sure that both in the desktop and in QBO, you look at, like, let's say the P&L for all dates or the balance sheet for all dates and look at them on the accrual basis. So when you're verifying the numbers in the desktop and comparing it to the QBO to make sure things converted properly, all dates and an accrual basis. You might also want to go in then and look at the AR and the AP, go and take a look at that, take a look at your sales and payroll tax liabilities, making sure everything, all your balances came over and that they're okay. And so check that stuff out. Then you verified your balances are okay. Then what you need to do is go in and set up payroll. If you have payroll, you're going to need to set up the payroll items, the employees. You need to enter the year-to-date payroll information so that your W-2s and things like that are correct. You need to go in and set up the sales tax items, and you can have multiple sales tax items that you can set up. Inventory. Again, I don't recommend, if the company has inventory, I don't recommend converting that company at all. That's a situation where I recommend using the list, export and import those lists to get started that way. I don't recommend converting inventory. You can go in and clean it up. It's a lot of work, and a lot of times it's more trouble than it's worth. The reconciliation reports don't come over. So when you convert to QBO, those reports, they're still available in the desktop version, but they're not coming over. You're going to want to go ahead and reconcile, make sure all the bank accounts, credit card accounts, things like that, go ahead and reconcile, make sure everything's okay in those situations. If you have customized reports, you're going to want to set those up. Recurring transactions, you can go in and set those up. One of the best things about the recurring transactions, I love this. You can not only set up an invoice to automatically create every week or every month, but it can auto email it too. And I just think that's the coolest thing since sliced bread. And then customize your template, import your logo, things like that. You may have done that when you set up the company file, but you can go ahead and customize those things. Set up the different users. Make sure that you, as an accountant or a bookkeeper, are logging in as the accountant user so that you see it on your QBOA dashboard and you have access to some of our special tools. Then you can set a closing date password just like you can in the desktop version. So you may want to make sure that you set that if you need to. So that was some of the stuff that I wanted to make sure we got through, and I'm going to answer some more questions in a minute. But I'm going to be sure and invite you to join me for the one we have next week, the webinar next week, common mistakes and how to fix them. So today we were talking about converting. Next week we're going to talk about common mistakes that I see in QBO and how do we go about fixing them. Then we've got a whole Amplify the Processes webinar series coming in May. I'm really excited about this. You're going to learn about all these different apps that integrate with QuickBooks and QuickBooks Online and how you can use these with your practice to help you to grow your practice. Now, I'm still finalizing the links to register, so later today you will be able to go to Appify, longforsuccess.com/Appify, and get all the details and register for those webinars. And then also the award-winning Accounting Decon. If you're interested in that, I encourage you to join me for that as well. Now, let's go ahead and do a couple of final things here. Here's a summary of what we covered today. We talked about converting from the desktop to QBO. We talked about some of the limitations on converting. What are some alternatives to converting, like starting fresh and importing our list, as well as identifying things to do after we convert. So I'm going to go ahead and put the CPE poll question out here for you. You have to answer this question here to get your CPE credit. So here's the CPE poll question, and I'm going to take questions in just a second here. But this poll question is the CPE keyword. You have to answer this in order to get your CPE credit. So if you've been multitasking, please come pay attention and answer the poll question here for the CPE keyword. And I'm going to look at some of the other questions that we have here and see what we can answer. Some of these, it looks like Woody has done a good job. Let's see. When you import, I think I've already answered some of these. Let's see, detail type versus just type. Let me go ahead and show that one to you. Let me finish up the CPE keyword, and we'll go show you that in the chart of accounts, the detail type that I was talking about. Somebody else asked about how do I update to the new QBO. The new QBO is awesome, and you have to just kind of wait. If you have payroll, you're one of the last ones to be converted, but they will convert you and update you to the new QBO. You'll get updated when it's available for you. So if you don't have it yet, hopefully you will have it soon. So I think that's great. Okay. Somebody says, I'm still using QuickBooks 2011 Pro. Is there another way to condense? I recommend updating to a newer version and then do that condense feature. And Intuit does have some trial. Like I think QuickBooks 2012, there's a trial version that's available for you so you can update your file to it, do the condense, and then convert that into QBO. Okay. So this is great. Some people said this is good to know, the do-over on converting and importing from the desktop. Somebody's talking about the links on all of those. I'll tell you what, okay, let's see. Only 75% have voted on this keyword here, but nobody else is asking questions about it. So I'm going to go ahead and close that poll question there. Let me go ahead and show you, when you get into those links, like, for example, somebody was saying, do I have to type all these in there and stuff? We can share some of these links with you, but at the bottom of these questions, if you go down to the very bottom, let me just tab down there, you'll find the links to other ones down here. So like here's the visual guide, the overview of converting data. It will link import into the new QBO. There's links to the other questions down here, so you don't have to type all of those in there. I thought in that PDF that you would be able to click that link and get access to it. So if somebody's saying they can't do that, you can go in here and I can actually copy this one and paste it for you in the question box. So let's see if I can put that in there for you. Other questions that you have for me to go ahead and put in there, and I will be glad to answer some other questions for you that you might have. Let me go ahead and go to our questions tab here. I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel or the Intuit Academy YouTube channel. Subscribe to my blog. Here's great resources. When you have questions, my LinkedIn group has over 62,000 members now. It's a great resource for questions, and so is the Intuit Community Forum. Great place for you to ask questions when you've got more questions on things. And again, remember, if you join the Cloud Pro Advisor program, which is free, you can get certified for free and certified in QuickBooks Online, and then you have support. You can call the Pro Advisor support number to help you, too, when you have some additional questions. Okay, let's see. This has been recorded, so you can watch it again. Any other questions that you all have? I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I want to remind you to register for next week's webinar that we have on common mistakes and how to fix them. Register for the Appify webinar series that's coming up. I'll have the links to register for that in a little while later this afternoon. Other questions, though, that you guys have? Any other questions that we have out here? Woody, is there anything that you'd like to answer before we let everybody go?
No, just one question that I'm trying to find out for. So I don't know how we get it to everybody, but when I've already converted, or let's say you just want to clean up the chart of accounts in an existing QBO file, if I clean it up in Excel and import it, this could be a long-standing QBO file, whatever. Does it just update the existing chart of accounts, or does it completely overwrite it? And I think it's update, but I'm just not 100% sure.
I think it's update too.
Yeah, good.
But yeah, and that's a good example where if you've got a sample company file, you can try that out in the QBO sample company file. You can import a list to it and see how it acts.
Absolutely. Yep. That's good stuff.
Use that. Yeah, use the QBO sample company, and you can import things in here. And again, the way that I got to it was under QBOA. You click on the question mark in the upper right corner, and you'll see the QBO sample company. You can import a chart of accounts there, and you can see what it's going to do, or you can import customers or suppliers or vendors or whatever, so that you can do that.
And the only other thing was a lot of people are confused over a parent company or the term parent company, because you're looking at your QuickBooks accountant right now, Michelle, and I don't think it was a parent company. The My Company would be, your firm's books. That's your file as the QBOA, user. And then, of course, you have all your client files. So, I don't know. I wasn't sure how better to explain that, but parent company, I guess, could be your My Company that you guys use for the firm. And then you have your list of client files you can also launch and work on from QBOA. Hopefully that makes sense.
Right. Very good. Now, I see somebody else, too, asking about, well, I'm from Canada. I don't have that sample company. You can log into the U.S. sample company if you go to qbo.intuit.com/redir for redirect/test drive. Now, you're not going to have multiple currency. You won't see the VAT center for your GST and HST. So there will be a few differences, but you can go in there and play with that. qbo.intuit.com/redir/test drive. That will take you into that sample company file. So you won't see the link in QBOA if you're in Canada, but you can get to it by typing this URL in there. So I hope that helps you. Okay, so I hope that helps. Yes, this was recorded, so that you will be able to listen to this again. It will be available on YouTube and Intuit Academy and on my YouTube channel as well, so you can watch that again. Is there a way to import sales tax lists? No, Glennie, you can't import your sales tax items. You're going to have to set them up. Lynn, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next week and on the Applify webinars too. When is the best time to convert? Frank, you can convert really whenever you want, but I would think you'd want to convert the data as of like maybe a month end or a quarter end or the beginning of the year. You can convert whenever you choose to convert. One of the things that you may want to do is run them in parallel for a little while. If you've got a client that's converting from desktop to QBO, the first month, you may want to go ahead and do things in both systems to make sure that they're comfortable with QBO, to help them to learn, to help them with the training, things like that. But once you convert and start doing things in QBO, you stay with QBO. You don't go back and forth between QBO and the desktop and things like that. But you might want to run parallel systems during the first few weeks or something. Okay. Other questions that anybody might have. What is the advantage of being a QBO advisor? I'll tell you what, there's lots of advantages to it. ProAdvisor.intuit.com is where you can go to join the Cloud Pro Advisor program. The Cloud Pro Advisor program is for QuickBooks Online, and it's free. You get QuickBooks Online training. You can get certified, and then you can be listed in the Find a Pro Advisor website. You can use the logo on your website saying you're certified, and you get support. So if you have a question or a problem and you need some help, you can call QBO support for Pro Advisors, and it's really great to be able to have that available. Like we mentioned, if you got some data integrity issues and you need some help. So it's a great resource. Best of all, it's free. Joining the Cloud Pro Advisor program is free. The training is free. Getting certified is free. The support is free. Why would you not do that? And the Pro Advisor program, they have a Cloud Pro Advisor program for those of you in Canada as well. You would go to proadvisorintuit.ca, proadvisor.intuit.ca for Canada or .com for the U.S. Here's the Cloud Advisor program. Go sign up now. Okay, go sign up right now, and then you can get the training, you can get certified, and you can get support stuff too. Okay, hopefully that helped. Any other burning questions? Let me see if we've got anything else here. Somebody says that they're currently using 2011. You can go ahead and convert from 2011 to 2014. You don't have to upgrade if you don't want to. Okay. And I think we've got through most of these questions here, so I'm going to go ahead and thank you all for joining me today. I want to encourage you to fill out the evaluation form or the feedback and let us know how we did and other things that we can do to improve. But I really appreciate everybody joining me today. Hopefully you'll join me next week for the common mistakes. And then also the Amplify the Processes webinar series is going to be great. Those will be coming up soon and going all the way through May. So I'd love to have you join me for those. Thank you all for joining me today. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. I hope you guys have a great day.